Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, I had a voice radio, so today I'm bringing you a very requested video, in fact. We have looked at the rotation. This is the news that the Pokemon sets X and Y, Flash Fire, Furious Fist, and Phantom Forces will not be legal for tournament play next year, and therefore we have to try and have a look at what sets will be legal and what decks are going to be good. Now, we've already looked at a quick video looking at, the main cards that are being rotated. We've already had a look at all 4 sets that are being rotated and the main cards we are losing. So it's time to answer the question that a load of people have been asking me, what should I play after rotation? Now, there is a big caveat here, and that is that Steam Siege will be legal, and as with every new set, we can predict what we think is going to be good, but we don't know. Also, we don't know what people are going to want to play after rotation. I'm going to go through some decks which I think are going to be good. I'm going to give you my opinion of what you should play. I cannot guarantee it's going to be right, but if nothing else, this will be an excellent starting point. But I would say that I'm biased. Let's start off with Rayquaza EX, or to be more specific, Mega Rayquaza EX. Emerald Break does 30 damage times the number of your bench Pokemon for free energy. And then, of course, we've got Skyfield, which allows you to have up to 8 bench Pokemon. 8 times 30 is 240. Now, you've got the Delta Evolution Ancient trait, which allows you to evolve whenever you like, on your first turn of the game even. You've got your Spirit Link, so you can evolve without ending your turn. And free Colorless Energy. You can use double Colorless Energy, and then of course you can use a Mega Turbo, as long as you've Mega Evolved, to get the free energy. All this goes to say that you can essentially just get him out on turn 1 of the game with a Skyfield, 8 bench Pokemon, free energy, and be smashing. This deck basically writes itself. It is fast, it is consistent. Why wasn't it played enough before rotation? Because it's weak to Joltik, and Night March was huge. With Night March gone, he is coming back. He's got 210 HP. That's not the easiest number for most decks to hit. If you're playing against other EX heavy decks, you're going to be taking 2 prizes a turn. If you're not, then you're taking 1 prize, they're taking 2, but you've probably got the speed and you've probably got a KO every turn, and most decks, especially non-EX decks, are going to struggle to return the KO. Now, you have got Altaria that you can use to get rid of your weakness, which is quite nice, with the ability Clear Humming. However, there are some very, very easy counters to Rayquaza, which are going to stop it being top tier. Let's go through a few of them. Firstly, Parallel City. Your opponent can put it down whichever way they like, but they're going to put it down with the side showing where you can only have free bench Pokemon. It's not the worst thing in the world. You can just put down a new Skyfield, but then you've got to find all those Pokemon to bench. You could be putting 5 Pokemon in the discard and then be having to try and get them all back. That is far from ideal here. It's going to slow you down a lot. You're also potentially going to mourn the passing of Sacred Ash here, because although we've got Super Rod, Sacred Ash gets your Pokemon back, and because of Mega Turbo, you're going to want to keep the energy in your discard pile. But Parallel City isn't the best counter. We've also got Raichu here, who can be pretty good. He does, 20 damage times the amount of your bench Pokemon, and if you're playing a Skyfield, your opponent can bench a whole bunch of Pokemon, KO with Circle Circuit, which is, quite an advantage for them. But even better than Raichu, we have got Zebstrika. Now, Zebstrika does more damage if you've got a fighting resistance, as Rayquaza does. Crashing Bolt does 50 damage or 110 if they've got fighting resistance. Ties by 2 for the weakness, and you've got 220 and a KO for just a double Colorless Energy. And if you want one more counter for this Rayquaza EX deck, I give you Giratina. Giratina EX has the ability Renegade Pulse, prevent all effects of attacks, including damage, done by your opponent's Mega Evolution Pokemon. And Chaos Wheel stops you putting down your Skyfield and your double Colorless Energy, as well as your Spirit Link, I suppose, as well. Now, the really bad thing here is that Rayquaza basically cannot one-hit KO Giratina. You can play a Hex Maniac to turn off Renegade Pulse, fine. But if you do that, then you're only going to be doing 150 damage because Giratina can put down their own stadium. And it means you cannot put down your stadium because of Chaos Wheel. You can play a Pokemon Ranger. That's a card that's going to be coming out. And, it will essentially turn off Chaos Wheel. But you cannot play Hex Maniac and Pokemon Ranger in the same turn. That's going to be a problem. You can always use Altaria to get around stuff like Zeb Striker, although again, Hex Maniac turns off Altaria. But between Parallel City, Giratina, and Zeb Striker, as well as Raichu, this is a deck that's very easily countered. Make no mistake about it, it's still a good deck. Essentially, what's going to happen with Rayquaza is, if nobody is countering it, it's going to win tournaments. As soon as it wins tournaments, people are going to counter it and it's going to be terrible. Your job as the Rayquaza player is to pick the tournament where people have given up countering Rayquaza, and then you are ready to go. Like the Heatmore that came out, which was supposed to counter the old Durant deck, but no one ever played it because by the time it came out, Durant got terrible because of Darkrai EX. The other deck, which I could not like much more for the rotation, is Mewtwo EX. Now we got 2 regular, 2 mega. We're focusing on the mega with Psychic Infinity. This is an attack for just a double colourless energy, 10 damage plus 30 more for each energy attached to both active Pokemon. Your opponent's got a double colourless, you've got a double colourless. 4 times 30 is 120, add 10 is 130 for just a double colourless energy. That, ladies and gentlemen, pretty gosh darn useful, if I may say so. Now, you can run into the problem where your opponent doesn't put enough energy down, but as I say regularly on this channel and on my podcast PTCG Radio, if your opponent is not placing energy they want to place so that you can't do enough energy with Psychic Infinity, that's a good position to be in. They are slowing themselves down. And using cards like Mega Turbo and maybe even Max Elixir before you Mega Revolve, you can go ahead and just get smashing nice and quickly. But that's not what makes the deck amazing, although make no mistake about it, it makes the deck good. We have got the Mewtwo EX with damage change. And it just allows you to swap damage counters with your opponent's active Pokemon. This means that if they do not one-hit KO Mewtwo, and let's be clear, Mega Mewtwo's got 210, you can just switch damage. 2 Psychic and a colourless, and again, time you add in your Mega Turbo, it's not that difficult to hit this, and you are rolling, quite frankly. And then, of course, you've got the Stadium Shrine of Memories, which is not being rotated out, which allows you to use attacks of your previous evolutions. Hence, you can Mega Revolve to Mewtwo, while still using damage change on the non-Mega Mewtwo. This deck is going to be really, really good, because if they don't one-hit KO you, they damage change, and if they don't want to try and put you in range of being damage changed, you can just Psychic Infinity. This is an incredibly strong deck. Scott Simmons got 3rd place at the European Challenge Cup, the biggest tournament in Europe, with this deck this past year. And the reason it wasn't played more is, again, it was weak to Pumpkaboo, and Night March was huge. You take out Night March, and this becomes one of the best decks in the format. Now, it does have a weakness to Rayquaza, because, of course, Rayquaza can one-hit KO, but then we've got all those counters we just talked about previously. For my money, Mewtwo and Rayquaza are the 2 biggest decks, or the 2 early front runners for best deck after the rotation. But let's go through a couple more. We have got Greninja. Now, Greninja's another deck that lost very, very little when the rotation hit. It did lose the X and Y Greninja, so your Water Shuriken goes away, but you've still got Frogadier. And water duplicates will still help you set up nice and quickly. You've still got the Breakpoint Greninja, which allows you to use Shadow Stitching to block abilities, or Moonlight Slash to do 80 damage. And we've still got Greninja Break and his giant Water Shuriken, which allows you to drop 6 damage counters. I really like Greninja Break as a deck. It hasn't really lost very much. You've still got N and Ace Trainer, so you can fall behind by a couple of prizes and then come ahead and pull out the comeback using these two cards, using Giant Water Shuriken and Moonlight Slash, or if they're dependent on abilities, Shadow Stitching, to really slow them down. Biggest problem with Greninja, I would not like the Greninja matchup against Rayquaza or against Mewtwo. When you're against Rayquaza, they can just be one-hit KOing you very quickly. Even the 170 on Greninja break is just 6 bench Pokemon, which is not all that much. If they don't break evolve, you don't even need a Sky Field. You can just go ahead and hit them for 150 with your 5 bench, and that will be enough to get the KO. Against Mewtwo, it is exceedingly difficult to get a KO. A one-hit KO and avoid being damage changed. What you would have to do here is use 2 Giant Water Shurikens to put him up to 120. Then you would have to use a Moonlight Slash while bringing the energy back for 80 to go up to 200. And you would need a Muscle Band in order to go ahead and do 210. Oh, wait a second, Muscle Band's been rotated. Now we've still got Giovanni's Scheme, which can be very helpful and get you the KO. The point I'm making is it is very awkward to get up to enough damage to one-hit KO a Mewtwo. It can be done, but it is not easy. Then, of course, if you're trying not to one-hit KO them, they can use Psychic Infinity. Now, let's be clear, you can end up with 0 energy on you, because you can use Moonlight Slash and put the energy back, but it is still a possibility. They can pile energy on. Using double colourless energy in Mega Turbo, Mewtwo can pile energy on quickly. If I'm playing that matchup, I would much rather be the Mewtwo player than the Greninja player. Let's go through a couple of other decks, lest we make this a two-parter. I'm going to be honest, there's a very good chance it's going to be a two-parter, just because I don't really want to rush this too much. Mega Sceptile is a deck, I mean, again, it's a deck that really was a bit of a problem, given that, you know, we had Night March, and Night March could one-hit KO. Boo, etc. Now, Sceptile, we've got Unseen Claw, 130 damage if they're affected by a special condition. Don't forget Max Elixir can help get the energy on there. Want to get them affected by a special condition? We've got Ariados, who can poison both the active Pokemon. Oh wait, Sceptile is grass, so he doesn't get poisoned. Which means that you're doing 130 damage for 2 energy, plus the poison is actually 140. This is very nice indeed. Then you can look at the Mega Sceptile EX here. And he's got Jagged Saber, 100 damage, and you get to attach 2 energy to the bench, and you get to go ahead and heal the Pokemon on the bench, so you can just switch between them. You can just use a Jagged Saber, get hit, retreat, and then heal and reattach the energy when your next Mega Sceptile attacks. Let's not forget you've got Mega Turbo and Max Elixir to attach extra energy. Max Elixir before you evolve, Mega Turbo after. And you've got Forest of Giant Plants and Spirit Link, which give you the same advantage as Rayquaza, i.e. you can just evolve whenever you darn well feel like it. Sounds like a good deck, and you put it against Greninja and it is just going to roll through them. The weakness and the fact that Mega Sceptile's got Fatal Stop, so abilities don't hurt you, i.e. no Giant Water Shuriken. And quite frankly, Mega Sceptile will run through Greninja very quickly. If anyone's still playing these Water Box style decks with Manaphy, it will run through them very quickly. What's the problem? The problem is it can be one-hit KO'd by Rayquaza. 220 HP does mean a full 8 bench Pokemon, but that's still absolutely doable. And Mewtwo, you cannot one-hit KO. Now, the good news is they're going to struggle to one-hit KO, and you've got healing if they damage change and don't KO you. This is far from a terrible matchup, but still, you're not one-hit KOing, they're not one-hit KOing, and they can always just go nuts with Psychic Infinity. It's not easy, but it's absolutely doable. 7 energy total times 30 is 210. Add the 10 base is 220. They've got 2 energy on. You need 5 to get a one-hit KO with Psychic Infinity, 2 double colourless energies, and a Mega Turbo, and you are there. Given that they're not one-hit KOing and you've probably got 2 turns to get the energy on, it is is easily doable. Mega Sceptile should have a bit more speed due to Forest of Giant Plants, but again, I'm getting this with a lot of decks I'm planning around at the moment. Rayquaza and Mega Mewtwo become a little bit of a problem. Let's go rolling around. Now, one deck, I've seen some people say, oh, Mewtwo isn't being hyped very much. I disagree, sir, and if it hasn't been hyped enough, I'm hyping it now. And people are saying, oh, hang on a second, what about Water Box? Let's be clear about this. People are saying, yeah, but Water Box, you've got Glaceon EX, and this is the water deck where you just play lots of Max Elixirs and a variety of water Pokemon. You've got Glaceon EX, that stops attacks from Stage 2s. You've got Regice, that stops attacks from EXs. Everyone can just play Pokemon Ranger. Versus Seeker is still in the format to reuse it. You can use Pokemon Ranger many, many times a game, 5 if you're only playing 1. And then you can KO Glaceon and Regice. They don't hit for enough damage. They get turned off by Pokemon Ranger. I am not entertaining Water Box as a viable thing. However, let's talk about maybe going through one more example, Dark Box. This is the same kind of idea, using Max Elixir to get a whole bunch of energy on the field and smash, except instead of water Pokemon, you're using dark Pokemon. And I've had an awful lot of people get in touch with me. If anyone wants to, by the way, you can find me on Twitter @TheWassy, or email me at ptcgradio@hotmail.co.uk. I should say that in every video, and I always forget. And people are saying, well, hang on a second. Let's go ahead and, maybe use Dark Box. And there are options. You've still got Baby Eviltal. He was a promo in Generations and is getting a reprint in Steam Siege, using Oblivion Wing to help you get set up. And you could use something like an Umbreon EX to go and take extra prizes against Mega EXs. Let's be clear about this. We know that, or at least I am positing, that Rayquaza and Mewtwo are going to be the best decks in the format. They are going to be mega decks. So you can use Umbreon EX's endgame to knock them out and take 4 prize cards. Although that's going to be difficult against Mewtwo, because if they're 70 HP or fewer away from being KO'd, then you can just go ahead and damage change, and you see where I'm going with this. Either way, you take 4 prizes, and with the new card Ninja Boy, this can come out of nowhere. You've got an Eviltal with a single energy in the active. You can then play Ninja Boy, switch the Eviltal for an Umbreon, attach the energy to the Umbreon, add a double colourless, and off you go. Ninja Boy makes Umbreon a lovely surprise card. You've then got the Darkrai from Breakpoint, who you can pile energy on and smash. With Dark Pulse, 20 damage plus 20 more for each dark energy attached to all of your Pokemon, so you can just pile energy on your bench and then smash with Dark Pulse. And this gives it a chance against anything. I still think Rayquaza is going to be faster and more consistent, and I still think that Mewtwo is going to be able to damage change and then Psychic Infinity, although you have got resistance against that. But the thing I love about a Dark Toolbox deck is the options. I've already told you about Umbreon. If you're playing a whole bunch of Dark Energy, it's going to be quite easy to play something like a Zebstrika, for instance, or a Raichu, or even you could play a couple of Double Dragon and surprise your opponent with a Giratina against something like Rayquaza. There are options all over the board here. I don't think it's going to be the strongest deck, but here's what I will say about this Dark deck. I don't know. The brilliant thing about this Dark deck is that there's so many different things you can do. I have no idea how people are going to play this. I think a one of Umbreon plus Ninja Boy is pretty much a given, and I think Darkrai as your main smashing attacker is a very clever thing to do. But because you're playing Max Elixir and a whole bunch of energy, there are so many options here for other attackers. Now, what we're going to do today, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to leave it there. We are going to make it a 2-parter. Some of you have said, hang on a second, what about budget decks? So what I've been doing, as I've been going through, Mewtwo, Rayquaza, Greninja, Mega Sceptile, Dark Box, all of these involve quite expensive cards. The other decks I've got on my list of decks we should be considering, I think are cheaper decks to make. So, what we're going to do is we're going to come back with part 2 of this video in 2 or 3 days, and we're going to be looking at some cheaper options to play after the rotation. Let me be clear as I sum up and finish this video, I think Mewtwo and Rayquaza are the early favourites, but Greninja, Mega Sceptile and Dark Box, I think they are other decks you should be considering. If you think I've missed any, there is a comment section, use it. If you would like to click the like button, I would like it if you click the like button. Similarly, if you were to go and subscribe, that would make me a very happy man indeed. We are close to 3,800, which means we're close to 4,000, which means we're close to 5,000. And that is a pretty nice goal to head towards. So, you comment, like and subscribe. I'll be back in a couple days giving you some cheaper options to play after the rotation. As always, by far the most important thing is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross and you've been watching PTCG Radio.